Hi there. Hi, everybody. I am delighted to be here with Rob MacDonald from Firewood and with Fabian Erlinghauser from Saloon. And we're going to talk about digital portfolios today and basically putting your best work out there and how best to do that. So thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to come here today and share your insights and your experience and your knowledge. Really appreciate that. Maybe when I ask the first question, you could just give a little bit of a background on yourself and what you do. That would be great. But I think I am going to just kick straight in, and whoever wants to answer can just take that ball and maybe just give a little introduction to themselves. But I suppose this may be a silly question, seeing as this is what we're here today to discuss. But you know, what is so important about, or how important is the digital portfolio in terms of your world and what you're doing?
Go ahead, Rob, if you want.
Okay. So, hello all. First of all, my name's Rob MacDonald, and I am the Group Creative Director for EMEA for Firewood. We are a digital agency, advertising agency that look after specifically tech clients, so Google and Facebook and LinkedIn and clients like that. So I've worked a bit with Dawn before in terms of interviewing graduates, doing mock interviews with graduates, and we actually hired a graduate, I think, from the year before last course, who's the most junior member of our team, and is flying. So I'm really, really happy to be here and hope that I can offer some insight to you guys. So for me specifically, anyway, there's two things that a digital portfolio does instantly. First of all, it lets me know that you are digitally savvy when it comes to doing creative, and I run a digital agency, so that's everything to me, right? So there's two things I need to know with people that I'm going to consider for interview for junior positions, and one is that you are, you have creative savvy. The other one is that you are operating in the digital sphere. So as opposed to coming into an interview with a old school portfolio, and having a digital portfolio, first of all, lets me know that you're digitally savvy, which means that you're higher up on my list of possibles. And secondly, obviously, a digital portfolio means that anybody can look at it at any point in time, anywhere that you need to look at it. You don't need to be there. So it's not even an option. It's a mandatory for my field at this point in time that any candidates have got themselves a digital portfolio.
Okay.
So yeah, hi, I'm Fabian. So I work at Saloon as animation director and currently director. And just in terms of the digital portfolio, well, I think the most important thing is that the quality is there, and whether that's sometimes presented digitally or on paper or drawings is also fine if you sort of drop in and you basically show a couple of things in a sketchbook. Because most of the time it's about showcasing your ability to draw, do concept designs, character designs, and things like that. And at the same time, yes, it is so important to have it digitally as well when you're into, let's say, character animation that involves audio, acting, where you do lip sync and you showcase a lip sync and you do need to play videos, or if you're showcasing compositing or any sort of technical skills that you have, then for sure you also need the digital portfolio. But the quality is the most important thing at the end of the day. Okay.
And so I suppose following on from that then, creativity is obviously important, so what are some of the creative portfolios that you've seen?
Well, from my perspective, I think the versatility is a big factor. That, like I always say, look, it's good to be versatile, but you have to have one core skill that you say is yours. Like when you say, look, I'm a character animator. However, I can also do storyboards. I can also design environments if you need me to, but you have sort of like a pyramid. You have like the core skill is on top, and that's what you showcase first, and that's what primarily you get hired for. But then ultimately the aim is to remain employable. So if you can also maybe help out in some departments, then that's always good for production. So they always know that you're not only a one-trick pony.
Okay, so showcasing a number of skills that you have as well, but kind of focusing on, keeping the focus on one maybe. Okay, thanks, Fabian. Did you have anything to? Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. It's the exact same in digital advertising. So particularly for a junior coming in, a wide variety of skills is going to be massively beneficial to them, even in the early stages of the first year being there, even, you know, finding out what your niche is. But if you know what your niche is and know what it is that you want to pursue, know where you feel your value is going to be most usable and what you want to be doing on a day-to-day basis, having that as being a focal point in your portfolio is obviously really, really important. And also within that, even the most comprehensive piece of work that you can put that shows as many different variants. So for example, if it's motion graphics, have motion graphics in front, but make sure that the motion graphics have good character design, good environment design, good animation, like all present. You can sell that whole thing in one piece of work at the beginning. So whatever that one thing is that you want to specialize in, put it front and center so that I can see it as soon as I open your portfolio and I get a real sense of what you're about.
At the same time, also, I think it's important to be realistic and not expect that you can be amazing at everything. Because I see people who are very good at one thing, but let's say somebody who's very good at character animation is not necessarily very good at compositing. You know, everybody has sort of their niches, and if you feel that that you're lacking in one field, it's always good to train up, but don't do it at the expense of your main core skill.
Okay. And so for me, because I've dealt with maybe, you know, IT portfolios and tech portfolios, it's kind of like the idea that when somebody comes in telling me that they are really skilled in, you know, HTML or Python, you know, and the list goes on and on and on, then you're kind of starting to wonder, well, really, is it all of those that you know, or is it just that you've touched on some of those? And what is it that you really know? So what you're saying, or what I'm hearing, is that, you know, you've got to be really sure of what you really know and kind of lead with that, and then bring in maybe the other things around that if you can.
Yeah, what I've seen in some portfolios is that people put a sort of a graph there, like where they say, look, I'm 100% knowledgeable in Photoshop, but I'm 80% knowledgeable in this or 70% in that. So that's also kind of nice to put in there so that the person gets a better idea of what your expertise is really in percent, for example.
Okay. Okay. So you can see it clearly.
I would agree.
Sorry, that would be for you as well. Okay. So is there anything that you're kind of, you know, having looked and seen portfolios kind of coming through the door, and, you know, is there anything that you're kind of sick of seeing at this point, or is there anything that really kind of, you know, has grasped you? You know, is there something that's really grasped you? You know, so, you know, they're both either ends of the one question, I suppose.
I might take that one. Yeah, okay. I first of all, I would say that I can't ever say that I've gone through like so just really briefly, the way it works for me is we'll put a job listing up and then I'll get an influx of applicants at any level, whether it's a junior or I'm speaking to a university, or whether it's a senior, you know, and I'm going through the same principle. I'm going through a trough of portfolios at one time. What always gets me in a positive way is when somebody is selling themselves very well, because I work for a marketing agency, right? So if I can see that the person has a sense of how to market themselves in an instant, or in, you know, something that sets himself apart, not in a novel way or in a kind of a gimmicky way, I really hate that. But if I can see, and I'll give an example, the girl who I hired from IADT had a video of all her work right at the beginning of her portfolio, and she also sent me the video as an attachment. The video showed me that she could do motion graphics. It showed me that she could do video editing. It showed me that she had really, really strong illustration skills. And it showed me all these amazing skill sets in like 20 seconds. So not only did she make the video, she sent the video, and it's also like the top 5 like divs in a carousel of her portfolio. And it's all there for me to see in an instant. And I was like, right, this person knows what they're doing. I'm very interested in speaking to this person. So I can't say I'm sick of seeing anything, but people who can market themselves well and get a sense of what it is they're trying to sell, I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, that's a really important point there. Basically, put your best foot forward, because oftentimes the portfolio that your portfolio is maybe the 20th portfolio that day that somebody's looking at. And sometimes it's really 30 seconds and people have an opinion about what they're looking at, and then they're on to the next thing. So I always think it's best to not put like 7 minutes of everything that you've ever done ever into something, but just really best foot forward. The first minute should really say it all, and then whatever comes after that is sort of a bonus. And in terms of what you mentioned, what am I sick of seeing? I think just know the place that you're applying for. Like if that place does a certain thing, don't show something that they have never done or never will do, because then it's just simply not viable for that studio.
Okay, so there's something about tweaking, you know, what it is that you're doing, and knowing what what the agency is doing, and the job that you're actually going into, so that you can make yourself relevant. And then that's really interesting, Rob, what you're saying there about kind of just, you know, okay, so this person gave you like 20 seconds, showed you in 20 seconds what they could do. But then you had the option to go into their carousel, which is kind of, for me, very much like a CV. You know, in the profile, you give, like, you know, your 5 top key achievements, and then a person gets to read on and contextualize that. So it's really about kind of being smart and you know, and I think that some of the things that I have seen with digital portfolios for definite is that people just throw everything into it. So everything is thrown at it, and you're just kind of handed that lump. And there's kind of this lack of, you know, relevance that you're talking about, Fabian, then, and there's this lack of kind of just organization almost, in terms of, you know, or thinking behind it. I'm going to take a couple of questions from the floor now, if that's okay, just as we go through, and then we might get onto that kind of the other stuff that that I have here to ask as well. So how can I present my portfolio in interview during this time is one question that just came in. So we're in COVID now, that's where we are. How can I present my portfolio now?
You mean like if we're doing a Zoom or an interview or something like that?
Yeah.
So for me, your portfolio should either be available as a website or as a PDF. So you could simply share your screen and talk through the different slides, which is an interesting one, actually, because then you get to control how I view your portfolio, and you get to do rationales and explain behind the stuff that you're presenting and what the process that got you to that creative solution was. So normally, if I'm reviewing a portfolio, I'm going to go through it and go, well, what did you do here and why did you do this here? But if you are controlling the meeting, you have that advantage of going, so this is what I did and this is why I did it next. This is what I did and why I did it. And I think that, like, we're all, in every industry, everybody's living like this all the time. So I don't think anybody will be in any way phased by having to review a portfolio in this setting. In this setting. Obviously, there's some audio and video playing problems that can be problematic with connections and stuff like that. So I would research how to make sure that if you play audio on your machine, that it doesn't come into with an echo or anything to me. And even if you need to tell me to mute myself or anything, don't be afraid to give yourself the best chance by speaking to the person who's interviewing you, to give yourself the best platform.
And honestly, that really is just about doing a bit of research, you know, and checking out the audio settings. Like on Zoom, there's an audio setting in the background that you need to make sure is working if you want audio happening to the other person in real time and in good quality. So, you know, it really is about that. And also just doing a run through with somebody else at the end of a Zoom call to make sure that what they're seeing is what you mean them to see before you ever go into that interview. So there are lots of different things that you could do. Is there any particular platform then that you would suggest in your kind of from your perspective? I mean, you mentioned PDF there, Rob, and I know that you mentioned kind of, you know, having your own website, but I know of ArtStation as well. Are there other platforms that maybe you've come across, Fabian, or?
Well, usually in my field with character animation, you also need to play quick times or little videos. So it's a combination of both. It's JPEGs. It's usually JPEGs that you click through. Just make sure, you know, practical stuff, make sure they don't take 10 minutes to load. Like, so just practical things like that. And I think also when somebody is looking at your website before the meeting, then it's actually them driving the conversation with you. In other words, if you don't need to necessarily pitch your portfolio there, you know, I've been in portfolio sessions where I'm basically doing most of the talking, because I say, look, I really like this, but maybe you could also add this. And once your website is there, you have made your statement in a sense already.
Okay. An interesting question, guys. Should I show my creative process or just the finished product?
from my point of view, always show the creative process. It's good to show the finished product so that obviously the person knows that you can finish the job. But if I see 20 finalized images, then what I really want to see is how you got there. You know, I want to see the initial idea, the initial spark that came, then a work in progress, and eventually then the finished product. But for me personally, it's always much more interesting to see how you actually reach that final product.
Yeah, so much like you were talking earlier, Rob, about that 20-seconder, that, you know, that 20-seconder might be your finished products, and then, but you're also giving the ability for people to go back and have a look at the actual original process then.
Yeah, that also, Rob, in your field, it might be slightly different, but in animation, for example, because you work as part of a team, they want to see what sort of stage you fit in best. So, so in that case, the process is really important, because there's always a sort of a back and forth with maybe another department, and so so yeah, if you can maybe show 3 or 4 different stages of one illustration that you have, that's always great to see. Like.
Okay.
So we do work in slightly different fields, Fabian, though I think we're both looking for creativity and understand the value of creativity and how to spot it. And one thing I think is really important about that, about the 20-seconder, right, is the 20-seconder is going to get you the interview as far as I'm concerned, right? Or it's going to get me to investigate the portfolio that will either lead or not lead to the interview. For me, the 20-seconder shows me there's 2 things I'm looking for with any creative, right? And that's the ability to execute and the ability to think. So if you can show me the ability to execute in the 20 seconds in that, and like, don't take 20 seconds as being verbatim, like you can certainly 19 seconds or 21 seconds. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
It's not a specific thing. But what I'm saying is, then if we go through your portfolio, I'm definitely going to be picking out some projects and going, okay, what was your brief there? And were you working as part of a team? And okay, well, I think this is a really good solution or answer to that brief. So can you tell me how you went through the conceptual process? Did you work by yourself? Did you work with a writer? Did you work as part of a team? How did you arrive at this conclusion? I would more so have the story behind that ready, because unless you can have like slides in some way ready that are going to support every single piece in your portfolio, I'll be able to tell the ability of your execution from, and this is where myself and Fabian maybe are kind of different in that. It's not so much about like the ability to sketch the characters and that inherent ability to draw. It's all about thinking with what we do and the ability to take conceptual thought and move it to like holistic picture, right? So I'll be picking one piece of creative and getting you to talk me through it. So I don't need visual support for that, but I'll be able to tell the quality of your rational thinking from the conversation.
Yeah, okay. Ultimately what you want is somebody who applies creative thinking to a task, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% the exact execution of something that I asked. If you can always plus it, that's always great. I have animators coming to me saying, look, I know this is the brief, but how about we try this? This could be really plussing it. And if it serves the cause, then absolutely always welcome to hear that.
Okay. Okay. Another question then, what question should I ask myself ahead of creating my portfolio to make sure I portray myself in the best way? Are there any questions that come to mind that you should be asking yourself?
The first question I would ask myself is, what do I really love doing? So out of all the elements of modules, even, you could break it up like that, that I've done throughout my education, what have I continually gravitated towards? And you'll probably find that that's a thing that will have your best work. So with that, your best place to be able to talk about it with enthusiasm and passion, it's probably going to be your best work. So you should put those things up front and center and make sure that those things are communicated like clearly and concisely, and try to steer the conversation even towards those things. But you should be asking yourself, what do I love to do? Yeah. Because that's what you're going to be best at, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Rob. And the thing is, you'll also end up doing this for the next 40 years or something. So you better love it. Okay. At the same time, it's this funny thing that we're working in a field where it's more than just a job, because we put so much emotion into it and so much personal stuff that sometimes it's hard to have a distance to it. So you will encounter retakes, you will encounter people who clients who will just send it back and say, no, that was crap, just redo everything. And you have to sort of develop a thick skin as well, that you're close enough to it so that you really care, but you will always get criticism, and you have to sort of take that in your stride sometimes.
Okay. And so having that confidence, having that initial confidence that this is something that you're really good at can be quite important then in those kind of spheres. So, you know, the chances are you're kind of stacking the odds in your favor if you love it in college, if you love it, you know, if it's what you gravitate towards, that's going to be something that, you know, happens for you in work as well.
There's one footnote on that, actually. I think it's always really good to have an opportunity to get into an established workplace. And if that means that you might have to take one step back just in order to get your foot in the door, then by all means do that. Like, I've come across people who say, look, I'm applying for this top position, and if I don't get that, then I'm out. Like, and, you know, oftentimes it's better to just sort of get your foot in the door, apply for maybe something that mightn't be exactly your thing, but then you're already in. And maybe 6 months later, you can talk to management or production and say, look, I actually really would like to do this. But then they already know you, and you're already a person, not just a name that can be discarded, you know.
Yeah. Okay, good advice. Any advice on curating a portfolio for somebody who has changed fields, like that's like coming from arts, music design into programming or web networking?
I'll read that music.
Yeah.
Have you had people who have changed fields, Fabian, that have kind of come into?
Yeah, I know somebody who studied law for 6 years. Then one day she discovered that she wants to get into animation, and she's very successfully working in that field. Just again, know what the place does that you're applying to. You know, check out sample portfolios. Now you have such a wealth of, you know, on Instagram or whatever, Pinterest, you have things, so much reference that you could take. So really tailor it to the place that you're applying to and the position that you're applying to.
Okay, and I think that sometimes people underestimate the skills and the knowledge that they bring from where they've come from, right? You know, so you've moved from music, arts, you know, into kind of, you know, a more technical field. But actually you can bring a lot of that knowledge that you learned in those fields previously to this field to give you a very unique view. And I'm sure that person who did law and came into animation just brought a whole other kind of viewpoint, you know, that's kind of interesting. You know, they haven't come down the normal track. And that actually really livens things up a lot in a business.
Right, and look for things that overlap. Like, if you're in the arts, if you're a songwriter, what you're essentially doing is you're telling a story. So you're overlapping with somebody who is a script writer. And these things are tangents that you need to search for and fields that you could get into as well. Same with timing. Like, animation is a lot about timing, so is music. So there are lots of sort of areas within these fields that that share something.
Okay, so Fabian, I think this might be going directly to you, but Rob, you might be able to come in on this as well. I'm trying to get my first job in the animation industry, and I've been told my portfolio screams just out of college. Can you suggest anything I should do to make it look more professional?
Yeah, so what happens is that because people share a college course, they tend to showcase the same portfolio pieces because it's the same task, the same sort of exercise. So sometimes it's good to branch out and maybe redo the same exercise in a different way, because I've literally seen portfolios that are nearly identical because of the task that was given. So
just to be really, really careful about that and know that, you know, if this was a task that everybody was given, you know, we're all in the same kind of pond here.
Yeah, to give a practical example in animation terms, so the bouncing ball is a standard exercise. So instead of showing that bouncing ball, why not just put a face on it, or, you know what I mean? Like, basically do the same exercise, but in a different sort of way, so that it has something extra, something that pluses it and doesn't look exactly like the run-of-the-mill exercise.
Okay. Fabian or Rob, did you have anything to add to that, or?
Actually, just on the change in careers one, I was going to just...
okay.
It's kind of just reiterating the point you had, but believe it or not, I was an accountant for 3 years in the middle of my career, like a bookkeeper and a payroll technician. And before I got into creative, in a kind of career orientated way. I did study art in college and everything, but that sense of kind of business acumen that I gained during that time has actually served me massively well during my career. And I think that if you do have a previous set of skills, to be able to even identify what additional skills or what additional acumen that gives you and talk about it in an interview capacity can only ever work to your favor. So I don't ever think it's something you should bury or hide, but you should know what it brings to the table with you as a person.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also,
So-
can I just say,
Yeah.
not all roles are always creative. You know, there's some people who are pretty good at something, but they mightn't you know, they might think, oh, I'm not good enough to apply to that place or whatever. But that place hires dozens of people that are not necessarily the best artists in this position or whatever. They also need to have people who can facilitate the thing that you end up seeing on screen. So there are lots of technical roles and things that are sort of facilitating towards the bigger picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you honestly do get to kind of use it all, and actually it's something about kind of marketing yourself almost back to that and telling your story and being able to articulate why it was important that this journey happened before this one and what you bring from it to this one. Yeah. Okay. You know, we've got a couple of minutes left, and I suppose, you know, one of the questions that came up, and it was probably my last question as well, in terms of where we're going with this. I know we've kind of talked about a lot of this, but you know, if you could think about like, what would your top tips be in terms of really portraying your best work and getting it over to the employer?
Fabian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, from my point of view, you know, put something in that has character, that has that evokes some sort of spark where you think like, oh, that's an interesting thing now. Like, rather than just you know, a still life of fruit or something like that. You know what I mean? Try to find something that when you look at it, it evokes an emotion. Like, and that means just sometimes going with your own sort of feeling as well, and daring to put something in that you might think is maybe a bit funny or a bit weird, but it's that exact sort of character that people are looking for as well. That, you know, ultimately they're hiring a person, not a portfolio. And if you can bring something from that person, from yourself, to the table, then that's always welcome.
Okay. And that kind of really jives well with what you were saying earlier about really kind of just finding your thing, like what do you love, what is it, you know, and it, you know, when you're putting that out there, you know, that is that, isn't it? It's kind of exactly what you were saying there, to find that thing.
Yes, with one footnote though. If you're really into anime, let's say, don't show me only anime, you know, or 50 times the same thing. Like, do have some variety there and show a variety of styles. But yeah, always be sure of the thing that you love most, for sure.
Okay, thanks. And Rob?
So in terms of like the top tip for getting into a advertising or design or digital agency, okay, what I want to see is I want to see a variety of skill sets, and I want to see them quickly. And then I want to have a sense of what it is that you are really passionate about, right? So any junior that comes into our agency is going to be put on a massive variety of tasks, as many tasks as we can delegate to them in the first year to see where they really shine. Okay. And then the other, so if I can see that you can animate, as in motion graphics, you can video edit, you can typeset, you can illustrate, you can photo manipulate. If I can see all these skills in a short period of time, I'm going to be really interested. And then when we get into the conversation, that's when you can tell me about what it is that you feel is your main thing. And then one other thing that we haven't touched upon, actually, that I hold massive value is, if you have a creative interest that's outside of what it is that you're applying for, okay? So say, for example, you play music, or you write, or maybe in my case, you animate, you know, like you have another interest outside as a commercial interest that you're applying for, that is a creative outlet. I'm going to be very, very interested to know about that, because it's going to tell me more about your character as a human being and as a creative, what it is that really gets you excited. So definitely, you don't need to put something about it in your portfolio per se, I don't think, but in the conversation, make a point of I mean, I'll probably ask about it if I'm interviewing you, but I always am more comfortable with people that have a massive creative passion outside of work, because I think it helps their career in a long-term sense as well.
Yeah, good point, Rob. And also one other thing that we value highly as well is just your character as a person. Like oftentimes we hire people that might not be the most amazing person in that particular field, but they're the best to work with, let's say. So, you know, you end up working in a team. So be confident, but at the same time, be also a bit humble. Like, don't try that you own the place. Don't strut around the place and think that you can tell everybody, you know, what they need to do, even though you've just arrived, kind of thing. So be humble and soak up everything and stand your ground when you need to. But it is a team game, and ultimately you want to work with people that that you can have a dialogue with.
Fabian Erlinghauser, Cartoon Saloon. Oh, Rob, you wanted to come in there?
So just to second that is the most important thing.
Okay.
Be a nice human being, because that's what's going to get you the job, probably even over your skill set. If I think this person's going to sit in this office and be cool and be part of the team and like the vibe in the office, it's going to be a massive part of why we hire you. Don't worry, it's the most important.
Brilliant. Fabian Erlinghauser, Cartoon Saloon, Rob MacDonald, Firewood, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of that insight. Really appreciate it.